Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is a 2004 RPG made by the shortly after defunct Troika Games. The name is pretty self-explanatory. It's set in the Vampire the Masquerade tabletop world, and you are a newly embraced vampire. The Voerman Twins are some of the first vampires you meet in this strange new world, and the Voermans are fan favorites, especially Jeanette, who's the cover character for the game, although I'm more of a Therese fan myself. Very early into the story of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, when you arrive at the first club, clubs function as safe zones, with the blood dolls for healing, and typically a few side quests associated with them. Major quest and major quest giver. This is how she introduces herself.
I'm the finger down your spine when all the lights are out. I'm the name on all the men's room walls. When I pout, the whole world tries to make me smile. And everyone always wants to know who is that girl. I am Jeanette. And this bit of chaos crammed in a certifiable giggle is my club.
The impression you're given is fairly simplistic. She's fun, flirtatious, and slightly unhinged. She does seem to be eye candy above all else, which wasn't uncommon for video games at the time, unfortunately, but she is more than meets the eye. You're then shortly thereafter introduced to her sister, Therese, who is far more serious in demeanor. Therese, in comparison to Jeanette, is a curmudgeonly business tycoon, and these sisters do not get along. Therese calls her sister shallow and stupid and a slut. Jeanette says Therese has a stick up her ass. She's too serious. They call it the asylum, but they seem more akin to enemies than business partners or sisters. Therese says, in exchange for calling off her feud with the local Nosferatu, Bertram Tongue, she wants you to unhaunt the iconic and widely beloved Ocean House Hotel. The level is an abandoned haunted hotel after a man murdered his wife and son with a fire axe in the 80s. Yeah, it's a ripoff of The Shining. It still rocks. And it was wildly influential, inspiring a lot of immersive sims and being named the best video game level of 2004. Anyway, the Ocean House Hotel is objectively horrifying. Your power is stripped from you. The first thing this game teaches you is that you are a powerful vampire, and you can absolutely go and kill somebody selling speed out of a garage. And then, you're confronted with the fact that there's scarier things in the night than you. As the level unfolds, you slowly find out what happened to the family through newspaper clippings and through strange hallucinations of ghosts in the night. This chase sequence is not super relevant to the video topic, but I wanted to include it because that this incredible feeling of dread. It's scary, and it's unusual for a video game from 2004. Anyways, you arrive back at the asylum, the club that you own, and arrive upstairs not to find Therese, but her sister, Jeanette.
She's always...
After and if you refuse giving her the locket she asks for, the one Therese sent you to
what
get,
it's like to have your own...
this questline is very divergent, and I usually choose to turn her down in spite of her trying very hard to guilt you into giving her the locket. For reasons I'll show later, she sends you to slash paintings at the nearby Gallery Noir. As she says, when she pouts, the whole world wants to make her smile. And so, off you go. Anyways, you go to the gallery, which is being guarded by a stupid security guard named Chuck. You either mind control or threaten him to get in. You slash a painting of Cain, you slash a painting of, like, Lilith and the whole bit of the story. A strange blood golem comes out of the paintings. You beat the shit out of it. And then you go back. Jeanette is not here. Instead, in her place is a very, very angry Therese, who claims that the gallery exhibit that was being set up was her gallery exhibit, and Jeanette had tricked you into slashing the paintings for her as a way to play a prank on her sister. Therese asks you to go apologize to her sister for her at the diner across the street. Then, the game of telephone continues. You arrive in the diner, and there's a bunch of very conspicuous-looking thugs who have been set up to jump you. You can deal with them non-violently in a few ways, and you do get bonus experience for this. I chose to just mind control them. The phone at the back rings, and
Terribly sorry about that. My sister was just furious about your refusal to take part in her decision. She's crazy!
Faris claims Jeanette set you up, and she seems to be holding her at gunpoint, but at this point, which of the sisters can you trust? As it turns out, neither of them. You arrive back at the asylum, and it turns out there never were
I'm really
sisters.
sorry it had to end this way.
They're the same person.
I truly am.
The two begin to argue with each other through a clever use of camera angles, and it gets pretty...
You take that back, you bitch! You never gave me any credit for anything, Therese. I was the one calling the shots. Bertram was dancing on my leash. How does it feel to know that I beat you? Isn't it obvious? I'm about to rid the night of this deviant, backstabbing whore. Do you realize that despite her condition, she still fornicates with kind, no less? So, you're...
Jeanette and Faris suffer from severe dissociative identity disorder. Jeanette being a personality formed after Faris suffered severe abuse at the hands of her father. For a game made in 2004, it's remarkable how much empathy the game offers these girls, especially when compared to other media, which usually portrays people with this disorder as psychotic and violent. Neither of them are really in the wrong during their spat, they're just severely traumatized, and the other personality represents the aspect of themselves they hate the most. Of course they don't get along. This is furthered by the good ending of the quest, being them deciding to work together and coexist. To further their scheme of controlling Santa Monica, but that's because they're vampires and evil because of that, not because they're mentally ill. It's a rather realistic depiction of dissociative identity disorder, which is usually formed after dramatic events in real life, and it's clear a lot of effort went into writing it. In a Planet Vampire Q&A from 2005, Brian Masoda, the lead writer of Bloodline, said this. First of all, Jeanette and Faris's origin is loosely inspired by an ex-girlfriend, and true to the source, there is only one physical being. While the inspiration didn't suffer from the same affliction, Faris has multiple personality disorder, currently called dissociative identity disorder, I believe, and I studied cases of this disorder to make sure she was portrayed somewhat accurately. He then goes on to clarify her backstory, although most of this is implied within the game for the more perceptive player. Faris was isolated and abused by her father, forming Jeanette's personality to cope. He was later institutionalized and separated from Jeanette after killing her father with his hunting shotgun. Jeanette reappeared later due to her Malkavian blood. For some background for those who don't know what that means, in the setting of Vampire the Masquerade, vampires are divided into clans, each with their own curses. They still share the more classic weaknesses of sunlight and fire and stakes to the heart, but on top of that, every clan has a unique issue. Gangrel become more visibly animalistic as they use their powers. Venture are picky eaters, the Banahuquim have self-destructive compulsions, the Bruja are prone to frenzy, and the Malkavians are crazy. Which sounds rather vague in comparison to those other things, and the depiction of it within the universe has not always been the best. Being embraced as a Malkavian embeds you within a psychic cobweb the clan uses to communicate, basically a form of internet. And it also gives the person a supernatural derangement of some kind. Lunacy is my favorite example. It makes the emotions of the vampire tied to phases of the moon. During a new moon, they may be low energy and depressive, whereas during a full moon, they tend to be more upbeat. For Jeanette and Faris, that disorder, that blood, made them into two distinct personalities. I would argue they absolutely deserve that fan favorite status, and the realism in how they're written contributes to it. And it makes them hold up quite well. However, that isn't to say Bloodlines is perfect. It is a game from 2004, and you too, the player, have a vampire clan, which you're allowed to pick at the start during character creation. The Malkavian playthrough is incredibly different, starkly so, from what the Voermans are. The player character has entirely different dialogue from every other clan in the game, which is a big bonus of the playthrough. They hear whispers at random throughout the game, they have hallucination sequences, and most of their dialogue has prophetic insight towards the plot. They introduce the Voermans as the daughters of Janus, when Janus is the two-faced Roman god. The Malkavian playthrough is a ton of fun, especially with the foreshadowing and the dialogue, but it also makes for a much less compelling depiction of mental illness, and it feels like the effects of your derangement are intended to be funny above much else. When psychoanalyzing characters, it helps to take a step back and look at the bigger picture surrounding it. The cultural biases of the period, our medical understanding, and Jeanette and Faris definitely apply to this. They're well written standing alone, but they become much more interesting when looking at the culture surrounding dissociative identity disorder and mental illness as a whole at the time. That good host and evil murderous personality dichotomy that's common even to today, over 20 years later, isn't present in their character. We know far more about this disorder than we did in 2004, and yet their storyline still holds up well because the writing never stigmatizes their mental illness, and is a relatively factual, faithful depiction of the disorder. Miraculous might be the word to describe how they're portrayed in contrast to other media at the time, but it's not true. It's not miraculous. All it took was one of the writers trying very hard to depict it in a faithful way by studying the mental disorder instead of demonizing it. And I think that's something that can be applicable to studies of media going forward.
What? Oh, man. And you're a goddamn Malkavian, too. Wow. You really are fucked.